Every plant here has an RFID tag, and this is logged from seed to sale.
Chris Woods is president of Terrapin Station, a Boulder-based company that grows and sells marijuana products for both medical and recreational use.
There's a perpetual cultivation cycle that's happening throughout this facility.
His meticulous legal grow operations are scrutinized, tracked, and regulated by the Colorado Department of Revenue and the State Marijuana Enforcement Division.
I think one of the mistakes that was made in Colorado and some other states was allowing for home cultivation. And what we're seeing right now is a lot of cleanup from mistakes that have been made.
I think the 99 plant thing really opened the floodgates.
Kevin Merrill is the former acting agent in charge of the Drug Enforcement Administration in Denver. He says initially allowing medical marijuana cardholders to grow 99 plants in a home grow is largely responsible for the present black market.
And they would apply with the Colorado Department of Public Health to get their marijuana card that said that they were allowed to have 99 plants. If you got 10 of those people signed up, you effectively could have 990 plants in a residence.
And he says the Colorado Marijuana Enforcement Division was powerless.
They had no oversight over residential marijuana grows.
Our Rocky Mountain PBS investigation found the business of illegal marijuana in Colorado is booming. In just one case that has spanned more than a year, federal investigators have been taking down a web of hundreds of suburban properties, including places in Frederick, Thornton, and Aurora. Federal drug enforcement records show that so far, agents have seized 40,000 plants and searched at least 130 related homes in the most complex Colorado black market marijuana case ever. Our investigation has also found increasing numbers of black market related prosecutions and search warrants. So far in 2018, the DEA has seized at least 9 times as many plants as they did in 2014.
The thing that nobody predicted is that normalization, commercialization would be a magnet for international black market activity.
Bob Troyer recently stepped down as Colorado's U.S. Attorney. New laws this year now limit home grows to 6 plants for individuals and 12 plants per residence. And with local jurisdiction approval, 24 plants can be grown in a home for medical purposes. But Troyer says this has had little impact.
Frankly, that change was window dressing in the eyes of the black marketers.
Prosecutors and law enforcement say that's because the criminal infrastructure is already in place, and marijuana is now part of the Colorado culture. Chris Woods agrees.
If your neighbor sees you walking in with 6 plants, they think that that's acceptable, but they don't know what's inside your house.
How did legalization of recreational exacerbate the issue?
Just provided more cover.
And in order to remove home cultivation, you would have to get a vote of the people to strip that from the Constitution. But what a state legislature would be able to do is to require people that wanted to cultivate within their home to work in the same sort of regulated and tracked system.
So you're saying even people at home who are growing their 6 or 12 plants legally should be tied into this system?
I think that's one option, absolutely.
He supports such a plan in part because the illegal market cuts into his business. And like many in the legal cannabis industry, he argues the way to eradicate the black market is to legalize marijuana nationally.
If there's no demand for marijuana from other states, then there will not be the supply to meet it. It's just a function of business.
Would national legalization of marijuana stop the black market?
No. You would always be able to go out there and probably find it cheaper than what you can through a state-regulated business.